I think Charlotte. We are ready to party.
They're classy too, man. I can wear this on a date.
People who are most successful are the ones who don't just give up.
Hey, how good are these to-go boxes?
Our to-go boxes, they're not good. They're f***ing amazing. How did we get started here at Albemarle Paper? Well, late 2008, my cousin John and I started this paper company, and we got all sorts of different products.
Hey, Nick, come on, man. Let's get to work.
You got cleaning products, too? You got a party this weekend? We got your back. Anything you need here at APS. Plates, napkins, silverware, table covers. We got everything covered, right, boys? What other items do we carry? Paper towels? I got it. Toilet paper? I got it. Gloves? We got you. Pizza boxes? You're probably wondering, where are we? Where's Albemarle Paper? Don't you worry about that. We got you. I'll bring the product to your front door. See you guys.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of MLS Corner, the best corner in MLS. What a weekend. 6-goal thriller this weekend at the bank against a great opposition like Seattle Sounders. We will talk about that game tonight. We're going to do a little bit of a recap so far of the season. And we also have a bye this week, so it's going to be pretty strange not doing anything soccer related this weekend. So today, to analyze everything, we have star-stellar cast. We've got my man Brian. How are you tonight?
Oh, you know how I'm doing. Just missing Charlotte FC games, and they always end up being bangers. Like every time, like this might have been the one of the. Like when I was rewatching, like, man, this might have been like just from a neutral standpoint, like one of the best Charlotte FC games, just in terms of exhilaration and highlights. Like I was just like, God, of course, missed that one, but I'm here talking about it, so it's fine.
For sure. And we also have Mr. David Palma from the Yeti Clan. How are you tonight?
Good. Thank you for having me back, bro.
For sure. I like that little Swiderski photo you got behind you. So
Yes, sir. You already know. Wait.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And we have the man of the hour as well, Mr. Lee from CLT FC Fan TV. How are you tonight?
Good, man. You?
I'm good, Liverpool.
Thank you, Spurs.
Nice. Awesome. Well, let's get to it. Like we mentioned, a 3-3 thriller at the bank, right? I first want to talk a little bit about the lineup that we had. Obviously, we ran a back four with Byrne, Jones, Malanda, Lindsay, a midfield trio of Westwood, Bronico, Bender, and up top we had Swiderski, Vargas, and Meram. The first thing that stood out to me about this lineup was obviously we had Jones as a center back, while we had 3 healthy center backs on the bench. And when we were defending, it looked like that transitioned to a line of a back 5, right? With Bronico slotting in. So, first of all, I got to say, this man, Latanzio, he is going to do what he thinks or whatever he wants to do, it looks like, right? So, I got to give that man credit for establishing a style of play regardless of the personnel he has, right? But let's talk a little bit about the games, and I'll start off with you, Lee. Tell me your impressions of this game.
Yeah, I was. It's good to see the boys not, normally or in the past when we've gone down, we've kind of just put our heads down and just kind of just played the game and just finished it. But even mostly a lot this season, right? We've dug in, we've come back, we at least kind of get points now. So it's not so bad when if we go down a goal, right? I'm starting to have more hope that we could come back and at least salvage something from the game. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, we saw that, right, David? Charlotte coming back not once, not twice, but 3 times with, I add, some spectacular goals, right? Westwood's goal, Rudias's goal, Swiderski's assist incredible. Your thoughts on the game?
Hey, it was a draw that felt like a win. It was good stuff. We showed good characteristics throughout the game and that grit to get back into the game that we should have won because we could have prevented either the first or second goal, the third goal. But yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, this is a good comment. We are a comeback team. Need to be killing teams from the start. Brian, your overall thoughts on this match?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the main points I was going to bring up. I feel like the first 10 to 12 minutes, Charlotte were well on the back foot. Rui Diaz had probably 3 shots on goal in the first 10 minutes or so, just really got pushed back. And I feel like Charlotte weren't really woken up yet, which I feel like has honestly become kind of a trend at home already. That's the 6th time they've come from behind or fallen behind at home already this season. And so I feel like, and then as soon as they give up that first goal, they like wake right up and they start really controlling large portions of the match. They get the goal back, and then they really like had a good 15-20 minute stretch right after that. So my one concern is just like what is taking them that moment to wake up? How do they do that from the jump? Like other than that, like they really stayed in it, didn't like put their heads down every time they gave up a goal. Again, I think the tactics, pros and cons to them, right? They definitely the tactics definitely burned them on at least 2 of those goals. Like Bronico and Byrne clearly do not have cohesion together. And they just were both like looking at each other like, whose job was it? And then they're, and like that's, I feel like how a lot of Charlotte's goals have been is like some new pairing in some portion of the field, and they're both like, do you go or do I go? And then they're like, oh man, I thought you were gonna go. And then that's like so many goals have been like that this season. And so there's aspects of the tactics that worked and then aspects of the tactics that didn't. But, I mean, maybe he's also just honestly accepting that the defense is going to struggle because that's kind of how it's been. I don't know if he can solve it with the personnel he has. I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also that lineup is also kind of a statement as well. Obviously, in that press conference, we asked Latanzio, right? Different question, and he always reverted back to, but we need signings in the summer. The young players are doing great, but we need 3 signings. You could have asked him if he liked, I don't know, the color of the sky that night, and he would have said it was amazing, but we still need some new signings.
Has he made any comments on what 3 positions he's interested in?
He hasn't addressed it specifically. He's been asked, but he kind of avoids the question.
Just beats around the bush.
Right, but I think it's pretty clear too. I mean, when you have three center backs on your bench and you decide to throw in Jones and Brent Bronico in that back 5, right? I mean, it's pretty evident, right? I mean, obviously we haven't seen the best of Taloma, unfortunately. Jan is not a long-term solution. Corujo is just coming back, right? So, I mean, I give him credit for going with the lineup he did and sticking it to his guns, right? But at the same time, do you guys feel like if we would have had more natural center backs in their roles, we would have been able to, I don't know, maybe pull a win?
I mean, if Corujo was 100%, I think we could have done something. I mean, like you guys alluded to before, right? That first goal, I mean, it just split the 2 defenders, and it's like Brian said, it's like, whose job is it? Like, they just ran right through us. I mean, to be honest with you, the second goal was over the top too. So it's like we can stop the ball if they're running at us or dribbling and trying to pass around us, but once they launch it over the top, we seem to forget how to play it at the back line there.
Yeah, and it wasn't like Roldan. I mean, Roldan wasn't hiding it. He literally points and is like, put it right there. Put it right there.
I mean, they could have escorted him out, right? I mean, I feel like they could have at least kind of, if not got the ball with a header or something, at least kind of shuffled him out.
Yeah. Yep.
For sure. And also, I mean, we saw a goal from Aguiman, right, who played for Charlotte, scored minute 88 to tie it 3-3, right? Amazing. Then the next night he goes and plays for Crown Legacy, doing overtime, right? Scoring in that game. Unfortunately, they lost that one. But David, your impressions with him and just how important that goal was, right? One of the things that we asked Latanzio was that, the youth has kind of done their part, right? And they've come in. We've seen good games from Brandon Cambridge, and now Ajiman is coming in and scoring in solidifying a point for us.
Oh yeah, you said it perfectly. Like he got on to do exactly what he needed to do. Because if you look at the goal that he scored, who's right there behind him? There was Swiderski. So you think about it. If he's not in that position, does Swiderski do the same thing? Does he get that goal as well? Ajiman, he's a presence when he comes on the field. That height, man, you love to see that. That's what you want from the striker. Somebody who's strong on the ball, can hold that ball. Somebody good in the air. That's what you want in a striker right there.
How tall is he?
6'5".
Yeah, I asked him, right? I was like, bro, online it says you're 6'4". He's like, I'm 6'5", dog. I was like, all right,
He's
we'll
wearing those
correct
Skechers
everybody.
insoles, man.
I was like, so just in case you guys are ever on a trivia and they ask you how tall he is, he's actually 6'5". So
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do it on our next trivia. That's gonna be one of our questions. See who's paying attention at the Top Bin show here.
for real.
For real.
Yeah, we got y'all.
For real. I mean, obviously some notable standouts to me this game. I think Ben had a great game.
Yep.
I think Ashley Westwood as well, right? I mean,
Yep.
that was what a goal by our captain. I mean, pass from Ben, right? He's smart, holds on to that ball, right? Then shoots. He said, Rudias, you have a golazo. Yo, I'm about to have a golazo too, right?
He sold that defender too, though, didn't he?
Oh
He
yeah.
did. He did.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
See ya.
Man. And that was kind of like the closing that we needed for one of the best signings we've had this window, right? In Ashley Westwood. And we'll get into that a little bit more in depth as well. But I mean, the guy has come in with that leadership experience. He's upgraded our midfield and he's scoring bangers too. That's what you want to see from signings, right? That upgrade. And I think Ashley Westwood has been that.
Agree.
Any other notable players from this match that stood out to you guys?
Lindsay?
Jalen?
Jalen, I think Kerwin Vargas had a pretty good game. I think he was giving Nuhu some problems on the right side, and then I think him and Cambridge coming in continued to give Nuhu problems. So I'm wondering if that might be a comp. I mean, obviously Uzviak coming back, we'll change that up as well. But I think that combination of Vargas and then rotating Cambridge in is a pretty lethal combination, just in terms of like a full 90 minutes of having to deal with some really serious athleticism on that right hand side.
For sure. And let's not forget, right? Seattle's one of the best teams in the West. They're coming in here. We're missing 2 DPs in Kamil Yazviak, who's arguably been one of the best players this season. We're also missing Enzo Copetti, right? Who is probably close, if not there now, to being ready to go. So I think, like you guys meant, like David said at the beginning, right? It's a draw that feels kind of like a win, but still at the end of the day, right? Like, this is what now? 3 or 4 matches without a win? 3, right? 3. So 2. I mean,
Benny hit the post, man. We were 2 inches away from going up.
Yeah. If he scores that, we get the lead, and that momentum changes right there, because we were controlling the game for the most part.
I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it also, I guess you give credit to Latanzio, right, for pulling this result with the way he wants to play, right? And I think it's really good to see him try and put that pressure on the front office, right? Because, I mean, he's doing as best as he can right now, right, with what he has. So I think tactically there's still some decisions that make you question it. But at the end of the day, we're still in and around those playoff spots with what he's got working, right? So, I mean, that's the beauty about the MLS too. You can kind of be crap and win a couple games and you're still kind of there. So.
Unless you're Miami.
Listen, when Messi comes.
We're just going to keep busting on Miami since they've lost 6, 7 in a row now.
Multiple times already this season. They've done that twice now.
Yeah.
They're just trying to see exactly how far Messi can take them. They're just trying to see
they just need ninth, man.
Max
they just
gap.
need ninth, man.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Just seeing the comment section on Twitter for Miami, they're getting trolled by the whole world, not just MLS. Nice. So let's talk a little bit about this season so far as well, right? I mean, like we mentioned, we played 18 matches, 6 wins, 4 draws, 8 losses. We sit 10th with the same amount of points as Montreal, believe it or not, who we all expect, or at least I expected for them to have a terrible season, right? We're one of the most scored on teams, right? We
I think we're
have,
the most scored on out of both
yeah,
conferences.
Yeah, we are.
most scored, most yellows, right? 10th in the league. What do we make of this season so far? I want to hear from everybody in the comment section. And I'll also start off with you, Brian. Talk to me about this season so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing right off the jump is just, I mean, giving the most goals. It's no longer. I think back when like we played St. Louis, it's like, man, some of these goals seem to be like kind of unlucky against Charlotte in some ways. I mean, it's clearly not luck, right? They are poor defensively, especially just lacking cohesion. I think part of that is on just the lack of health in the squad. I think part of it is also on just the constant rotation and changing of the lineup. To some extent, I mean, there's just nobody. You can just tell in the back line, nobody really seems to count on each other or trust each other because I feel like week to week, it's like a new group back there a lot of the time. I mean, especially in the fullbacks, the fullbacks get changed a lot, and so and just a little bit of experimentation as well. But like, I mean, I think it's also Latanzio's feeling pressure because he feels limited in terms of his options back there. So it's like a combination of both. It's like Latanzio feels limited in options, so he's trying to make something happen by changing things up, and then the players are like getting things changed up on them constantly, and so it's like I feel like it's like sort of just like a spiraling in some ways in the back. I don't know how necessarily you even fix that with like a signing, because really a cohesive defensive unit is like an entire unit. So like I don't know if you get one signing in and it's just like, oh, they're going to be better defensively. I think this could easily be something that's an issue for a lot of this season until they really come together as a group, whether that's with new signings or players on this roster just sort of developing more. I think it's going to be a combination of both. But I think that's the big first take I take out of this is just like they have to figure out a way to improve defensively, because like I mean that's not the amount of goals they're giving up is like that's not a playoff team, right? Like I mean you're fighting an uphill battle with that many goals.
Yeah, for sure. Lee, how much can we blame the tactics in terms of how we defend and the stupid mistakes that we make versus how Latanzio actually plays us, right? Because I think, what percentage would you give each? Like the tactics versus Taloma scoring an own goal, Malanda giving a pass to Klaus and scoring, right? Like we're in good positions, and then we've thrown it away. Even Latanzio said it. He's like, we probably could have had at least 2 more points from what we have if we didn't make these mistakes. In my opinion, I think we could have at least 5 more points, right? I mean, if we just cut out the stupid mistakes, we would probably be 6th right now.
Yeah, well, I feel like you answered your own question. But anyway, yes, right? Some valid points there, right? I mean, at the beginning of the season, we saw stupid mistakes that basically cost us the game or at least a point, right? Tactics, I mean, to be fair, I mean, a lot of people early on were screaming Latanzio out. But I mean, again, we've talked about it, and not to keep harping about it. I mean, this season's been a weird season off the pitch as well, right? I mean, he can set the team up however, but I think sometimes, or I think some of the off-field issues bled into the game as well. Now, with that being said, we could argue all day about tactics, right? But with the stupid back passes and that sort of thing, and then the injuries, I mean, the man's done as good as he can do, I think. I think we're in a good position. I wouldn't mind to see us in like maybe 7th or 8th, but 10th, we're still right there. Like if you look back at the league, we play the Red Bulls, which is right underneath us. And then if you look the following week, we play Montreal, that's right above us. So, I mean, those are 2 games that I would consider almost like 6 points for us, right? Not 6 points if we win both, but to get some distance from the Red Bulls and then to take Montreal. So, I mean, now it's on Zorn really, right? I mean, July 5th is only 2 or 3 weeks away. Let's see what he's going to do, how he's going to back Latanzio. And then if Latanzio gets those 2 or 3 players, right, then what's he going to use as an excuse in the presser?
For sure. I mean, yeah, you bring up some good points. A lot of the off the season stuff too. Like, don't forget, like Nuno and Andre count as over $1 million in cap space.
Yeah, so we need to get rid of those guys before we really bring anybody in.
Yeah, for the squad, right? So there's that. There's the passing of Anton Watts. Also, the unnecessary drama that Enzo Copetti is starting to bring, right? Like, unfortunately, we have to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, like, kind of like his on-the-field antics, to a degree, I was okay with, right? Because I'm like, but now it's becoming a little bit more often where, like, you see him upset on the bench, or you see him saying stuff to the media that he really shouldn't be saying.
Well, and see, I agree. That's where I sort of draw the line with him, right? I mean, if you do it on the pitch all day long, if that's your game, that's how you play. You want to get into the heads of the ref, the other players. You want to do all that, fine. But now it's like he sort of turned his back, if you will, on the hands that's feeding him, right? You see it, some of the little digs he's saying online, and in training, you kind of get a whiff of that too. So, it's come on, Capetti, man. Just put your head down and show us what you got, man. You can do it.
Or just also like he needs to handle like those are like locker room issues, right? Because teams go through ups and downs. And shameless plug for Jake's recent article on Jalen Lindsey, but Jalen talked about that in his interview. Like he mentioned, like we go through ups and downs as a team, and that's like part of like growing as as that friendship and that family. And so like in the locker room. And I feel like that's what Capetti is not. I mean, if you're talking to the media about something that clearly is an issue that you're angry about something, and like when you're angry about something with the team, you're supposed to hash that out with the team, not be like, I'm gonna let the media know that I have a problem. Like,
early on in the season though, Latanzio sort of called him out, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if that kind of set precedence on the way he's sort of responding. Like, it's like, hey, if my boss is screaming at me in the media, why can't I scream back at him?
Well, I think it has to deal more with like Latanzio saw this coming and was trying to prevent it with those comments, but he didn't prevent anything.
I know, he just added
who he's gonna be. And you know what? Like, if he starts scoring and banging goals, whatever, do what you want to do, dog. But you are subject to a lot of criticism if you're not producing on the pitch, right?
Yeah, I want him to do well, but right now it just seems like he's got a chip on his shoulder and he's not performing as good as he can.
In my opinion, he got a lot of unnecessary criticism at the beginning of the
100%.
season, and now like some of this criticism he's bringing it onto himself, right, by what he's doing. So
he just said, "Screw it! If you can't beat him, join him." So he's just showing him, like, giving us something to chat about each week.
For sure. David, what do you make of this season so far?
I think we've done pretty well considering everything that's happened that we've discussed so far. Fighting adversity, passing of walks, Nuno and Shinyashiki drama, and all this stuff. I think the team has done well, showing a lot of mental strength, getting past that. We've shown that we're not getting shut out by teams. That's one thing that I like, where we're scoring goals. It's just defensive mistakes. We need to get done mental mistakes. That's what's killing us this season. But I think we've done well overall. But it's just like little things here and there, the mental mistakes that we need to cut out, get stronger defensively. Kalina bringing him back, that definitely brought some confidence in the back line. We saw it because we started like going on a good run once he came back. But like there was still the lacking in that back line, not just through Kalina. There's still that defensive connection through the back four.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I have felt like, I don't know, like more of a calmer presence in the back somehow. I mean,
I don't know, man.
Goals,
at least, go ahead. Sorry.
But I feel like the leadership aspect that Kalina can bring, right, that does bring, I think helps. And it still gives them that slight edge over George Marks.
Yeah, but you say that, I mean, other than being vocal, like watching that Seattle game back the other day, that first half, man, playing out the pack was a little scary again, even though I knew the result. It was like, sometimes it's just hoof the ball, man. Like, we can't just keep playing it out the back. I believe that led up to their second goal, was the way we were playing out the back. We just gave it back to them right away. And then they just lobbed the ball over the back and scored. But, I don't know. Sometimes I would rather stretch it than just continuously try to play that Man City football.
And that might be that's more on the coach than it is Kalina, I feel like. But like, you even have to remember in the first 2 minutes, Rudias had that chance, right? That Kalina blocked again. Like, it was almost 1v1, right? I mean, in those 1v1s, like, if I would trust out of all the goalies in the world, I feel like I trust Kalina right up there to be the one to save it because we've seen that multiple times this season. Unfortunately, some have led to goals, but not because of him. But he's done his part in that aspect.
So is that the difference, though? We're assuming Marks wouldn't have saved him, but I mean, is that the only difference that Kalina's better one-on-one than Marks?
No, and I also think the leadership aspect, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the same defensive
Marks
mistakes are still there with Kalina in there.
But there's a higher chance of less mistakes, right?
No.
We saw George Marks give a clear mistake that.
We saw Kalina last year give a mistake.
No, of course. I'm not saying that there's a huge difference, but I am saying I feel like there is a difference.
I mean, if anything, there's more communication. I just don't know if it's you know. I mean, Kalina's louder and more vocal and that sort of thing.
But then also you have to also think about like these guys, him and Marks and Cisniega when he was in, like they're all playing with different back lines every week, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that goes into the tactics of the coach, right? Like, we don't know what our best back four is, unfortunately, right?
Lindsay needs to start.
Absolutely.
In theory, in my opinion, it's that. It's Lindsay as center backs. I would want Corujo and Malanda, right? Theoretically, that would be my pairing. And then on the left, I would want Mora, but we're not seeing that, right? So we see a Fool get played more. We see Byrne getting more time than Lindsay, right? Chaloma has started most of the season, right? He hasn't done well. So I mean, it's a lot of question marks, especially in that back line and in those fullback positions.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand, though. Lindsay's been consistent. Anytime he's played, he's been consistent, right? And so, like, to me, he should be a lock-in that back line.
Yeah,
I agree.
But I think in terms of how he plays versus what Lattanzio wants is where the big difference lies.
Is it because Yazviak's not playing? If Yazviak was playing, would Lindsay be
It's a good question. Probably not.
For me, I feel like the Lindsay issue is whether or not, like, it's how Lattanzio wants to set up his midfield in those games. Because a lot of times when Lindsay wasn't playing, it's because a Fool was out there at left back, and then a Fool plays that sort of double pivot and because Lattanzio goes for like numerical advantages in the midfield, right? That's why he's doing that. That's why he brings a Fool up into the midfield. He tries to get that 4v3. And then if you have Lindsay and a Fool out there, you have Lindsay who you want to push up. Like, that's his best trait, is pushing up sort of as a right winger. And if you do have him do that and a Fool's out there as a D mid, you kind of leave both ends open, both sides open. And so I think that aspect of it is tactical. Now, does that mean like Lattanzio shouldn't just stick with a tactic that seems to be hitting, in terms of like Lindsay's like clearly hitting, and like, so maybe just find another way to get a numerical advantage in the midfield and find a way to do it and then maybe that's what this was. This was like, how do I find a numerical advantage in the midfield and keep Lindsay out there, which is what the Bronico Jones sort of box setup was like, I've got my four midfielders and I was still able to find a way to get Lindsay on the field. So like, that's one change that we hadn't seen before, in terms of, because like that's what I think a lot of Lattanzio's approach is, like, how do I get four guys in the middle?
So does that go back to the question that Jorge asked and answered himself? Is it the tactics or mental mistakes?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, again,
I guess my point to this was, like, regardless, I get what you're saying and why he's sort of doing it. But I mean, when Lindsay's played, unless it's just happened to be against the teams that the tactics lined up to suit Lindsay better. Yeah. I mean, we've only lost like one or two games with Lindsay in, I think.
Yeah,
right?
only one.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Only one with him starting or him playing?
Only one with him starting.
Okay. I was going to say.
Yeah, he's 4 wins, 3 draws, and a loss. Now, I also think Byrne is getting Byrne. I don't think we shouted him out, but I think he had a pretty good game. His passing was, besides the first goal against, but that definitely was an issue with him and Bronico for sure. But I feel like he's also kind of he's been a little bit overlooked at times. And I think they've also put him in a lot of tough situations. He's been one of the guys who's been in a lot of tough situations in terms of like his fullback. The opposite fullback with him has always been an experiment a lot of the times. Like he was the one starting when Bronico was at left back for both of those games. He was also starting at left back when Malanda was playing right back. So like there's just, and then he's also been moved to center back. So I think that's another issue with, and it goes back to, again, the times you're kind of switching things around, but like Byrne has, I think, gotten sort of like a bad rap to some regards in terms of just like they put him around and like he's played like almost every position on the back line.
Yeah.
And so like, is that necessarily like the best thing for the guy you brought in to kind of maybe be your starting right back when you initially signed him last summer? So like, I don't know. So again, it's like, it's hard to figure out what's best. I do think Lindsey and Byrne both starting, I mean, really effective, I think, this last week overall, especially in the attacking side of things, because they both participated in the attack, even though they were part of like a back three or a back five at times.
I mean,
so like
Gordon Byrne assisted.
Yeah. And
shout out to Gaines too, though, man. He put a ring on it and ran all the way back there, man. He said, "Man, my honey's up here. I'm about to propose.
Yeah.
Show her why she's gonna say yes."
Yeah.
And Bender.
Yeah. Now I think to the question I asked that I answered, and I'm going to give another answer to now, is I think the player personnel leads into that as well, right? It leads into the tactics and it leads into some of the simple mistakes that we've made this season so far, right? Like the one thing for sure that I'm more confident about is Latanzo's not going to change the style of play.
No, not at all.
That we want to incorporate. And like he's gotten heat for it. And I just got to say mad respect to him, right, for trying to play a certain way with the personnel that he has. And now the window's about to open and he is hammering. We need signings, right? So, and I like his approach slightly better than Miguel's, right? Where Miguel's is, I'm not Harry Potter. This team's not going to do what isn't going to go anywhere, right? You know, we're screwed. It's more like, hey, like, I've asked the front office, we need 3 players to elevate where we're at, right? Like the pressure that he's putting on this team, on the front office, I think he's putting it in a good way, right? Like, hey, we've had discussions about this probably internally, but I also need you guys to know, right? So speaking of that as well, right? Speaking of the window opening up, what kind of players do we need to sign going into this window? And I'll start off, and I want to hear from everybody in the comment section as well. And I'll start off with you, David. What would you like to see being added to this squad?
I'd like to bring in a center back and, surprisingly enough, a center attacking mid. I would like to bring a center attacking mid and maybe another winger.
Nice. All right. If we bring in a center attacking mid, though, it becomes very interesting when the whole squad is healthy, right? Because theoretically, I think we would want to play a front 3 of Enzo, in my opinion, Meram, and Yazviak, right? Now, there's the debate of Vargas, right? Fine, right? But if we bring another, and we would want to slot Swiderski into that cam role, if we do that, if we bring a attacking player, where do we throw Swiderski in, who's been one of our best players this season?
Yeah, I don't see why not throwing him out wide or giving him a chance being the number 9. Letting him do his thing, you know what I mean? Why not?
And
Just
then,
let him and Capetti fight over it.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, you have to prove yourself. If you want to be the number 9, you have to prove yourself. You gotta be the one banging in them goals. You gotta be assisting. You gotta be contributing. You know what I mean? You just can't be like a presence on the field. You have to be scoring them goals. You have to be on the end of plays. You got to be creating them plays. That is just the way it is.
Yeah. And it does raise the expectations in him because I think Swiderski's highlight reel is already like becoming pretty substantial. Like I feel like he's made some really sick plays over the last year and a half. But the issue is like there are moments where he kind of either maybe seems a bit disinterested or just not quite clicking and not quite feeling it and not really rising to the occasion 100% of the time. And I feel like that's where also adding more competition helps with that. Like, hey, like this is the next level that you have to get to. And if not, like we have other guys. And I think that helps Capetti too, right? I think that's one of the issues with MLS. And historically, ever since Beckham came to the league and they've added DPs, is like DPs have kind of always automatically slotted into the starting role. But like, how do you find ways to make them also feel like they're spot in the starting 11 isn't locked in, how do you make them feel like they have to keep rising to the occasion and competing? And I think that's an important part that a center midfielder or a cam could kind of bring. I would like to see some more additions in the midfield. I think it's just always an area that's needed. You just kind of always need to upgrade at midfield every single window, just because we saw it early in the season when Bender was out for a little bit, and I mean we had multiple injuries just all at once. When Westwood was out, it was like, oh, we are stretched thin very quickly. Like it was like Westwood was out and Bender was out for a little bit. It was like, oh, who's our midfield? Like, and I think that's the other reason to kind of bring in another midfielder. You just kind of always want to have a little bit more depth, and then for me, at back line as well, like left back, center back, all these are options.
Yeah, I mean, to that point though, it seems like Westy, Merrim, and Carroll, they've all sort of got on the same page as of late, right? You saw a lot of balls from Westwood being either pinged out to Justin, right, or over the top to Carroll, right, which basically set up that first goal of ours, right? Personally, I think we definitely need a solid left back. That's one spot I think we definitely need to either lock down or figure out who the hell is going to be playing there. Like you said, Brian, I think another midfielder. Who do we upgrade? Bronico? Do we upgrade Bender? I'm not sure, right? And I don't know. I mean, I would love to see another cam too, and I would just let the DPs hash it out, man. And if Petty can't handle it and he gets pissed off and wants to whatever, let's just count our losses and move on. I mean, I'm not a Petty hater, but Carroll definitely is. He stepped up and he's starting to show what he's worth again, right? But the problem with that is every time he starts to get on some sort of roll, he always has to leave to go to Poland, or he gets hurt or something happens where he can't play. And then it's just like waiting for him to pick that back up again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we need to prioritize that back line. I mean, we're giving up the most goals in MLS, right? So obviously, like I mentioned, Jan isn't it. Corujo's just coming back. Toloma hasn't done well, right? Bring in another proper center back, and like you said, bring in another proper left back, right? I mean, if we look, all right, Yazviak has pulled his weight this season. Merrim has come in and been exceptional for us, right? Swiderski has been good for the most part for this team, right? We've had contributions from Vargas. We've had contributions from Brendan Cambridge, right? Aguiman has scored now, right? So I feel like at that top, right, we have enough to get us into a playoff spot, right? It's just solidifying the back line is what is most important, in my opinion, right now. I would love another cam. I don't realistically see that happening. I do see them adding another midfield, right? Because don't forget, right? We have Nuno Santos, who was the 5th highest paid player, right? He is gonna move on this window, right? Andre is being pushed out as well, right? We free up that cap space. We have to bring in another midfielder, and so that's where I would look at this team, right? Like, how do we? Those are the two things we need. Stop giving. I wonder how you coach. Stop giving stupid goals away. Right? Like, what do you like? You can't tactically
take the Xbox away from him after hours. Gotta teach him
something like that, right? But and also, right, like we lead the league in yellows, right? That is not a good thing, right? So how do we change that up? Because I feel like refereeing, and I'm glad Latanjo said something about it this weekend. Because it has felt like that, right? Like, I know we're all slightly biased because we're Charlotte FC fans, but also, like, you see clearly some games that you're like, bro, like, we're not getting anything, home and away, right?
Well, I mean, some of those yellows, though, are not just bad tackles, right? It's because half the team seems to get in the ref's face, right? And that sort of thing. When, personally, I think it should just be the captain, right? That should have that word and that respect for the ref during a game. I mean, I agree that some of these refs in MLS are just terrible. Like, they need to go back and go through the training again. But I don't know. I mean, I hate to just keep calling out, putting the blame on the ref. I'm just not that type of pundit.
Yeah, but I'm still gonna stick with that. It just there's been games where clearly like we're not getting anything. Right? Remember who was that one girl too that she just had a terrible game and we called her out.
Who is it?
I think it was
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
Wednesday
yeah.
night game.
Was that
Yeah,
was that the Chicago game?
I
Yeah,
think so.
Yeah.
yeah, because she did both the Chicago game this year and the Chicago Fire game last year.
You all right down there, David?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yep.
All right.
That's
That was a long
that was a lot of reading.
Yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah.
I was trying to read that whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Bring that back up.
Yeah. For sure. All right.
I mean, his
And then-
point, Brandon's point though, is solid. I mean, it does start at the back line, right? I mean, if you're going to stop goals, you need your defenders to show up, right?
Now, I do think the one thing that troubles me, and obviously I still want them to sign a center back, but they have to get it right this time. I feel like they've invested a decent amount in the center back position, like since their inaugural season. Like they've now spent a draft pick there too, and Hamadi Diop. Right, they spent $1 million in Gam and Tuiloma, international spots in Crujo. Now he's domestic, and then I mean they've brought in a decent amount of players, and they definitely have pushed for that position a decent amount since building the roster. That was like one of their main areas they focused on when they first started building this team. They just have to get it like they have to get it right. They have to bring in if they're going to bring in a center back, it has to be a clear upgrade by like a significant margin, I'd say. And then also like, I mean, that upgrade has to happen because you're just continuing to incorporate more lack of cohesion by signing a new player, right? It's been rough, but like that new player coming in is going to have to be responsible essentially for.
It's got to be a player that slots right in, right?
Yeah, he has to be, but he also has to be a guy that clearly I think stands out as like, oh, this is the guy on the back line. For me, I don't know. I think like that would be what I mean. But at the same time, maybe Crujo is that again. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
Well, Crujo's going to need at least 3 or 4 solid games to be old Crujo.
And maybe also a guy who's just like who prevents fires from starting. I also feel like Crujo, what he does well is put fires out, but we need somebody to just stop fires from even taking place. That's
Don't get a Canadian then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Brutal.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Jorge's got a good point too. Like it doesn't help that Derek Jones and Patrick are just so big, right?
Yeah.
A slight touch looks terrible.
Yeah, I mean that's a true statement. I mean, but Jones has been solid this season, man.
He's up there for best player of the season, right? So far, but we'll discuss that at our review of the year, right?
There we go.
But speaking of players of the season so far, right? I do want to touch on year 2 signings, right? And I want to hear from everybody in the comment section as well. What player has been so far, right? The signing of Charlotte this season. Is it Westwood, Captain Westwood, right? Who's come in, leadership, has helped us upgraded our midfield, is scoring goals, an amazing passer. Is it Merrim that has come in hot, right? None of us, at least I'll say it from my end, I wasn't expecting him to come into the form that he came in. Is it another guy like Enzo? I don't think anyone's going to say Paloma. Is it one of the youngsters, right? I'll start off with you, David. Who has been your player of the season so far?
For me, it has to be Merrim 100% because he's been the most impactful player for Charlotte. Honestly, the past 2 seasons, in the time he's been with Charlotte.
Dang, the past 2 seasons.
You look at his stats. He has 9 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. He's statistically one of the best players we've had in the time that he's been with Charlotte. Westwood coming back, he's given us that form. I would say Westwood, but he unfortunately that injury that he caught that slowed him down. But I think Merrim easily has been our best signing this season yet.
All right, we got 1 vote for Team Merrim. Lee?
Yeah, I mean, David kind of stole my thunder there. I mean, I kind of agree, right? I mean, Merrim kind of stepped in when Westwood was out, right? But now Westwood's back. It seems to the pendulum's kind of switched over to Westwood. He's, you know, picking the players out, pinging the ball around, doing whatever. You know, if you were to ask me at the end of the season, and if it continues the way it's going, it's definitely going to be Westwood.
Brian?
Yeah. So for me, I think the reason the reason I would lean Miram is because the expectations for him, for me, weren't anywhere near as high as what he's far exceeded my expectations for what he's brought. Whereas Westwood, I think, for me, is meeting that in terms of like we expected him. I mean, maybe not initially when we first signed him, but like as we saw, like sort of the cost the fee, the salary he's on, and sort of just the player the type of player he is, and how he fits into this midfield as to what. I mean, he's exactly what this midfield is missing in terms of just progressive passing, actually being able to find that pass quickly and make things happen and make transitions happen faster is exactly what this team was missing. I think the injury makes one think like, okay, maybe he's not the best signing so far, but I mean, even in the last few games, I mean, he's been made quite an impact. I mean, the banger goal, he's had an assist, and I think he's had a goal contribution in his last 3 games. And, so, I mean, he's starting to also just find goal production at the end of his game. But I think really what he's bringing is just the amount of progressive passes. I mean, he's near the top of the league. He's like 91st percentile in the league in just progressive passing. And I think that's exactly what Charlotte was missing. So for me, even though I think Miram's the easy choice just based on stats of what he's done, like, I'm already starting to lean Westwood just because of, and I think he's going to maintain that. Like, and he's also just it's a more impactful position, right? Like he's going to impact the game in a far larger way than Miram can, just because of the role they play.
Yeah, and I mean it's true. I mean the English players are the best players in the world, right? I mean that's a fact. You know, take it to the bank.
Yeah, look at
Bank
West
of America
Ham,
Stadium.
Right? Kind of like teams like West Ham, right? Winning things.
Yeah. Well, we beat 3 Italian teams.
Nice. I think someone put it in a really great way on Twitter, and I really liked it. It was like impact on the field, Aram, impact on the team has been Westwood, right?
That is a good way to put it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a great way to put
You're
it.
not even going to quote him?
Huh? Yeah.
Not even going to quote him?
Well, I did quote tweet it, but I need to find like what it. Hold on.
Random guy on Twitter.
Yeah, random guy on Twitter. The one good comment on Twitter. And you retweeted it. It was me.
At El Professor ERM. So that was great. Good job.
Tristan.
Great
That's low,
comment.
brother. That's low, Tristan.
Gracias, professor.
Yeah, for sure. Professor, gracias.
Fine.
I do got to say, though, right, like, to me, I lean slightly towards Miram's side, right, when it comes to, like, if you're, like, put a gun to my head, right, like, I would choose Miram easily because, like, what you both mentioned at the bottom, right, like, the instant impact into the team. And don't forget, he came in a time where things weren't great. Like, he came in,
Probably
they
to his
went to
advantage, though.
DC and lost 3-0, right? David interviewed him and somehow pissed him off, right? And he was like, he wasn't happy about being here. And then he contributed to kind of getting us back into the positive, right? And also, I think, in my opinion, right, like the finesse he has, I love it, right? Like, to me, I like Vargas. He's a good player, but I still feel like he can give something more, right? Miram came in and just balled out, and I was like, this is my left winger, right? Like, for the rest of the season, 34, it doesn't matter. Give me Miram all day on the left, right?
You definitely did a 180 on that fella. I
really did.
And you did a 180 huge.
But I think most people weren't excited about this signing. If you're looking.
I was.
Yeah. Nah.
Yeah, right?
I was excited. I didn't know much about him, so I couldn't be either way.
Lee's been scouting him since the Columbus days.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
real.
I'm talking about 1776.
Yeah.
It's crazy that our most impactful player, we had no expectations per se, because a lot of people didn't know who he was when he came. And like the people like Tui Loma, where we had like huge expectations, Copetti, all that stuff, they're just not hitting them standards yet. You know what I mean? It's
Did that
crazy.
help him though? Did that help him coming in a little later? He didn't get he didn't have to deal with the beginning of the season sort of off the field stuff, and then obviously the Andre stuff as well.
Yeah, I think it was more like people who've watched MLS for a while know that Merrim's a baller. My concern was his age coming into this team, right? Like, I mean, like you're in the downward trajectory of your career, typically, right? Unless your name is Messi at 35, you're still the GOAT and winning World Cups. But um, I think it leaned more towards that, right?
So going back to the question about the 3 players we bring in, do we look for somebody then that within the MLS already, or are we going to still try to look outside the league?
Look outside the league and in the league, right? I mean, this is the big window for the European markets as well, right?
Fair. I mean, but I'm just saying, like some of the bigger the names that we've got outside the league definitely haven't hit on all the cylinders, right?
I mean, some of the names that we've gotten in the league haven't hit.
Well, that's different. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just don't put as much weight on the MLS as I should.
For sure. I mean, you got Miami building Barca 09 again, right? So we need to start doing something. Right? But okay, my next question and I want you guys to think about this as well, right? And I want to hear from everybody in the comment section. What game this season so far has pissed you off the most?
That's easy for me.
For me, it's easy because we know which game we turned the TV off. But a game that you're like, God, like I want to just choke somebody right now, like just so annoyed, right? And I'll start off with you, Brian.
Yeah, easy for me too. DC United 3-0 losing like that. I think that was for me, just because they just didn't seem ready to go at all. I mean, all the advanced analytics said like we didn't really have a chance in that game at all. We gave up a ton of chances to DC. Granted, I mean, obviously Benteke put up an absolute banger of a bicycle kick, but I mean, we just didn't look with it in that game at all. And I felt like that was a game we should have at least matched up more evenly in that. And I just don't feel like we had really many solid stretches in that game at all. And that was also on the watch along. And I feel like I also like emotionally derailed a little bit. Usually I try to keep it pretty even keel, but that one I was like, I didn't know who to blame. I was like blaming, like I was like Latanzia front. I was just like I kind of went around the horn.
You blame JT at one point.
Games. Yeah, it was all on record,
Oh man, a lot of y'all are bringing up some really good ones too. That I
know, man. It makes it confusing now, man. Because
you can
real,
it has
like the DC game, like Brian said, right? That's one game. The St. Louis game, I just wanted to smash them fuckers, man, and we didn't, right? And then Atlanta at home, we were down 3-0 at halftime, man. And then the real Salt Lake, they were on a 4-game losing stretch, and of course we broke that. And then Columbus, we start off, we're already like about 2-3-0 down within like 15 minutes. Oh man. Why do I follow this team?
The St. Louis one was tough because all their fans hopped into the watch along and they started just trolling. Like once they were 3-1, just trolling. And we were talking about gifted goals, and they were like, "You're talking about gifted goals like they don't."
Hey, the Open Cup is a good one too.
Yeah, I'm not so mad about that one.
Yeah, because you don't like trophies, David.
Get out of here.
For me, it has to be the Salt Lake game because one, I was there. I traveled all the way out there, and
did your brother give you a bunch of stick at that game?
Man, what, dude? It was crazy, dog.
Oh,
like
Brian,
I just
with your other brother, right? You got a brother that lives out there.
Oh yeah. His name is Sandro. Yeah, man. He was sitting right beside us, being an RSL fan. Heck yeah. The fans were being toxic at first. At the first half, we score a goal. We're looking good. I get on my seat. I'm having my scarf up. I'm taunting the fans. Next thing you know, dude, we go to halftime. We go get a beer. The bad thing about over there, you get a beer, you have to drink it at the bar. We finish. There's no TV at the bar. We come back, we get to our seat. I'm just chilling. I'm going to my seat. I look up and it's freaking 3-1, dog. 3-1. I was just like, what the hell happened? And then we looked depleted. It was just not a good game, dude. I was upset to say the least.
Yeah.
Someone said that the only win was the vlog, that Yeti Clan vlog.
That's right, dog. And the weekend was lit except for that Charlotte game. That was
should have edited that out.
I gotta say,
just a weekend in Utah.
Yeah,
with the Yeti Clan.
Exactly.
The I hated the most was definitely the St. Louis one, because you know what? It's a new team in the league. they picked us to be their first home game. They picked us. They knew we would fumble the bag. And I was like, please do not fumble this. And we did it. We go up in that game. Enzo Copetti, beautiful header. And then we just throw it away in the most Charlotte FC fashion. Just capitulate, and we got to hear stick from these guys. I'm trying to defend this club. It's their inaugural season. And it stings even more because they're flying right now, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, does it sting even more, or is it
It
more
does
of
to
like?
me.
No. I get it.
This is the type of season we want here.
Of
We want to
course.
be near the top of the league.
course.
We want to be playing well. We want to be smashing teams.
Yeah, but the West is a weak conference, man.
It is a weak conference, but we lost to them.
We can't live in the past, Jorge. We can't live. My shrink
people.
always tells me, do not live in the past. Look forward to a bright future.
I do, yeah, but right now we're talking about the past. What are you talking about?
Future. Trying to change. I'm trying to shift you, man. Yeah. I'm trying to shift you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Jorge. He understands me.
I appreciate
I needed to get that off in my chest because it really pissed me off seeing how these men fumble a stupid game.
Yeah, that one was pretty bad.
Damn,
I think I remember after that game on your interview, I said that we fumble under pressure, and we clearly did that game.
For sure. All right, on a positive note, right? Because I like starting negative, then heading positive. Let's talk about the best game so far. What game have you guys enjoyed the most? Was it one at the bank? Was it an away match?
Atlanta away.
It has to be right. Just like the library. Just like the library. Just like the library.
That's the only game that stood out to me this season where we controlled the game from start to finish. That's the only game. Everybody did their job. Everybody looked good. That was it. We that last goal should have easily been prevented because you saw it last 5 minutes of the game. They did it like twice in a row. And then on the third one, they actually scored the goal. But honestly, that to me has been the best game. We controlled it from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful going down there, right?
Yeah, it was a lot
first of all, we
fun,
bring
man.
over 1,000 fans, right?
Yeah.
You
It
guys,
was.
go ahead, Lee.
I was gonna say that was it. Like the whole atmosphere that entire day, from getting up early, knowing it's an away game, jumping on the coach down to Atlanta, hanging out with everybody and having a good time, meeting up with everybody in the parking lot, tailgating, doing whatever, then getting lost in Atlanta and taking like 45,000 steps when we were trying to go over to Atlanta's tailgates, and then going in there and just whooping them, man, and then only having to pay like $12 for like some chicken fingers and some fries and beer, man.
What, dog?
Yeah.
For real.
It's one thing Atlanta does right.
Candela.
And then we got to tell them, hey, goodbye.
Yeah, and it was my birthday weekend too, so we
That's
had
right.
time.
To the club.
Yes, sir.
That shit was big lit.
Brian?
Yeah, see, I feel like I missed all the bangers. So like I miss Atlanta, I miss Seattle. Whenever they have a banger game, I'm camping, tires are flat. But I think the Columbus game also rings a bell. Like that as just like because I think at that time we weren't really expecting a result from Columbus, like against Columbus. But just being able to keep a clean sheet against like what's been one of the best attacks in MLS so far, and especially the best attacking players in Zelarayan and Cucho. So like keeping that clean sheet, winning 1-0 at home, I think that was a really big result as well.
For sure. Any special shout outs to maybe like Galaxy away or Orlando away, right? Where, to be honest, I mean, I wasn't expecting us to win in Orlando. I mean, we've beat New York again.
Sweep those, man. We sweep them, man. We don't even talk about New York anymore, man. Put them in the trash.
For sure. So
That's
I think,
facts.
So, we've had some happy moments. Although what sticks out to us most is this stupid St. Louis. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Galaxy away was fun to watch, right? Even though that was late as hell. Good.
What?
Was it?
No more late games like that.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm agreeing. It was that late.
For sure. All right. With that said, boys, it's been a great night reminiscing, talking about the season so far. Right, Brian, my man, where can we find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Bam Mauer Media. You can also find all my written content at topbin90.com. And shout out to Tyler and Jake. They've been like pumping out articles over this last week on topbin90.com. So definitely check out their work.
What you been doing, dog?
Huh?
I'm just kidding.
Fixing flat tires and going camping.
Yeah. And then also MLS Fantasy. I do an MLS Fantasy show with Blake from MLS Gone Wild. So dropping points. We're going to be recording a new episode tomorrow. I know there's a double game week, but we're going to send out some of our picks for that game and then do a show during that game tomorrow night.
Nice. Love it. Lee, my man, where can we find you at?
And all the socials at CLTFC Fan TV. We do our live show tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come over and hang out. And then we just dropped the fan reactions late this afternoon from the Seattle game. So check that out. There's some.
I'm excited to watch that actually.
Yeah, man, that's fun, man, because you get the raw emotions as people coming out the gate. Some of the takes are a little off, mostly from Arsenal fans, but the rest of them are are all right. Sorry, Brian.
Nice. I think Copetti, I saw he was in Miami, so he's probably enjoying the little 4 days that they got on a vacation.
He's back, baby. He's back.
We definitely go into that Nick Goxa game. Vinny Mello is with Crown Legacy. David, my man, where can we find you at?
On Instagram, y'all can find me at CLTFC Yeti Clan. Also on YouTube, we're going to be dropping a match day vlog from this past weekend as well.
Ooh.
Those are always lots of fun to edit because you guys always bring the energy, especially this past weekend. Being a capo this past weekend was a lot of fun. They definitely brought the energy, and it was a great time this weekend.
Nice. And you guys know where to find me at TopBin90 at all our socials, including TikTok. It's real TopBin90, but we found the password to the old account, so we're going to be switching that to just TopBin90, so it'll be great. We got some good articles coming out, so stay tuned for that. We got some more fire content coming out, and we're working on some really cool things as well, so be on the lookout. With that said, everybody have a great night. Enjoy the weekend. We don't have a game. Go spend time with your family. Hug your loved ones, right?
It's Father's Day. Spend time with your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's Father's Day, right? To anyone that calls me daddy, I expect it. All right, with that said, everybody have a good
Jorge's game, right?
day.